One of my all-time favorite Hasidic stories is the one about the poor man named Reb Yitzchak, who lived in Krakow, Poland. While Krakow was a relatively large town, even in those days, Reb Yitzchak barely eked out a living selling shmatas, rags, at the market in the town square where the people from the local villages known as shtettlach would gather twice a week. One night, after a long day of selling his wares, and despite his hungry belly, Reb Yitzchak eventually fell asleep. And on this particular night, he quickly began to dream. In his dream, he flew as if on eagle's wings, hundreds of miles away to the majestic city of Prague. There, he gently sat down by a bridge where he discovered a tantalizing sight, a chest filled with treasure. Piled high were glistening jewels, lustrous gold, and precious gems. And then, just as he was reaching out to touch them, all of a sudden, he awoke to the cold, damp of his cramped and drafty hut. In the meager light of the early morning, he scrounged around for a few bits of wood to light his stove in an attempt to take the edge off the frigid air. But the strangest thing happened. After another long day selling his threadbare shmatas, Reb Yitzchak finally lay his weary head down for the night, only to yet again find himself flying as if on eagle's wings to the same bridge in Prague, where he again beheld the tantalizing treasure. Poor Reb Yitzchak went on to have this exact same dream night after night for an entire month, at which time he made a decision. He collected all the coins he could find, walked to the Krakow train station, and bought a ticket to Prague. During the long journey, he looked out at the landscape rushing by and wondered if he was wasting his time. He wondered, frankly, if he was going a little meshuggah, a little off the rails. But when he reached the Grand Central Station in Prague, he realized he didn't even know how to find the bridge he'd seen so many times in his dreams. He consulted a map and saw the city had a main river, the Vltava, and it was nearby. So he made his way there, hoping for the best. Lo and behold, the very first bridge he came across was the exact bridge he had seen every night in his dreams. There was no doubt about it. This was the bridge. But as he approached to look under it for the treasure chest, he realized that the bridge was right across the way from the heavily guarded royal palace. It didn't take long for Reb Yitzchak to attract the attention of one of the guards, who approached him and asked, rather menacingly, what he was doing, loitering, alone, so close to the palace. Realizing that he was in grave danger, Reb Yitzchak simply decided to tell the guard the truth. No sooner had he shared his dreams and his reason for being there, but the guard started laughing uproariously. Why are you wasting your time coming all the way here on such a wild goose chase? I would never do something like that. I have dreams too, you know. I dream all the time that there's this poor Jew named Yitzhak living in a tiny hut somewhere in Krakow who has a treasure buried under his stove. You think I go and travel hundreds of miles in the hopes of following such a dream? After thanking the guard for his wise counsel, Rabbi Yitzhak raced back to the train station, boarded the first train home to Krakow, and when he returned to his little hovel, he moved his stove aside and began to dig. Sure enough, there he discovered a chest of treasure, long buried. It had been there the whole time. How often do we, like Rabbi Yitzhak, spend our time and energy looking far and wide for treasures that all along were right under our noses? How much effort do we expend year after year seeking wisdom and guidance and inspiration from far afield when they can be found right here? This past year and a half has taught us many lessons. We've been spending more time close to home. We've been forced to consider what is most important in our lives, who is most important in our lives. We've been starkly reminded of the importance of connection and of space, of togetherness and time being alone. And yet, in a world and a time in history when shiny treasures abound and can beckon us even in the palm of our hands, we still seek them in places far, far away. But perhaps the treasures are really right here. Maybe those treasures have been right here the whole time. Right here, where we return on occasion, where we return maybe once in a while for Shabbat, for a high holy day service, a bar mitzvah, a wedding. Right here where we sing familiar melodies, recite familiar words. Right here where we can taste the memories of years gone by. Right here where we recall loved ones who are still alive in our mind's eye. Yes, the treasures we find here at Temple Bat Yam, and yes, more broadly, the treasures of our Jewish heritage, our Jewish family, our Jewish home. The new year, Rosh Hashanah, with the resonant sound of the shofar, heralds a time of teshuvah, of returning, of coming home to those things that are enduring, coming home to that which gives us a sense of connection with the past and a sense of direction for our future, coming home and discovering or rediscovering the treasures that were here all along. And what of those beloved members of our family circle who did not grow up with synagogues and round challahs and apples dipped in honey and the haunting sound of the shofar? I'm going to suggest that you too are coming home. Coming home the way you know that a new sweater is just right, because it feels like it's been yours all along. Or when meeting your beloved and knowing that they are the one. This past 18 months or so, I've noted a striking increase in the number of individuals choosing to join the Jewish people. And consistently, I'm amazed by the way in which they describe feeling like they are finding their way home. A home they didn't know they had. A home they didn't know they needed until they did. Friends, we are the heirs, actual or spiritual, of generations of accumulated treasures, glittering gems that have been bequeathed to us from across the millennia, direction for living with meaning, ancient wisdom to guide us in rapidly changing times, the treasures of community with whom to commiserate and with whom we can celebrate. The radical idea that time can be shaped into cathedrals and imbued with sacredness. The radical idea that when we eat, we can choose to make even that essential activity a holy moment, and a moment that can reflect our deepest convictions. The radical idea that we have free will and personal responsibility, but that we also bear responsibility for others, especially those who don't share our good fortune or our privileges. The radical idea that through daily acts, large and small, we are partners with God in the unfolding of creation. Throughout the year, we are pulled in all directions. We seek things far and wide. Or perhaps we are so busy we don't take the time to even seek at all. Yet this Rosh Hashanah, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to reconnect, to renew, and remake our commitment to our heritage. We have the opportunity to come home. And this new year is an especially good one to do so, because it is the 7th year in a cycle of years. It is the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, a sabbatical year for us all and for the earth, when traditionally the land would be allowed to go fallow, to rest. What better time to commit to reconnecting with our heritage? By regularly participating in services throughout the year, by engaging in adult learning programs, by reading Jewish books, watching Jewish movies, by volunteering to call those who are sick and in need. For Reb Yitzchak of Krakow, the greatest treasures turned out to be located right under his nose, right there in his own home. He didn't need to venture far afield to get it. He just had to know where to look. It is said that after finding the treasure, Reb Yitzchak went on to be a pious man who lived contentedly and gave generously to those in need. In this new year, 5782, this sabbatical year, may we rediscover and re-embrace the treasures of our heritage. And in so doing, may we make this new year one of abundant goodness, sweetness, contentment, and health. Amen.
Amen.